Once I talk a little bit about the word emet, then I'm going to go into some of the scriptures that talk about the Messiah, okay? The word emet in the Hebrew means truth. It's composed of 3 letters. This is very intriguing. Okay, the word emet is Aleph, Mem, Tav. For those of you who are listening who don't know the Hebrew alphabet, don't worry about it. We're going to explain it slowly. Okay? But the Aleph Tav is like an A, like an Mem, M, and a Tav is like a T. And in the Hebrew, it will be emet, means truth. If you remove the letter Aleph, you probably know this, you have the word met. And then that means death. The wages of sin is death. That's what Paul says. The word of God is truth. That's what Yeshua said. You know, sanctify them by the word because thy word is truth. So therefore, if we don't have the commandments and we don't believe in the Messiah, who is the one who gave the commandments, we are removing God from the whole equation of the word truth. We're going to die without the Messiah. That's why we all have to go through him in order to be saved. You guys follow? Okay, now, the cool thing about this is when I found this out, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Aleph is the first letter, and the typology, it means the strength of Yahweh, the strength of God. Mem is exactly the middle letter on the Hebrew alphabet, and it means testing or a secret, reveal or conceal. It also means a wound that issues out, or waters coming out. The Tav is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and the typology, it means a sign, or a cross, or an X in Paleo-Hebrew. Now, a point of reference here, in the Mount of Olives, which is called the clean place, which is called outside the gate, which is called the Mount of Anointment, that's where they used to anoint the priests by the sign of the cross. Now, who died on that mountain? Yeshua. What did he die on? In a cross or a wooden stick that looked like a cross, right? You know that's in Bereshit, in the first word. It ends with the word Tav. And when you have all the definitions of the word Bereshit, you're going to find that that's why he needed to die on a cross, because it's already been established from the beginning. It's another teaching in itself. See, you guys follow that? Now, the cool thing about this is when we come back and we study those secrets in the Hebrew alphabet, you can get a whole teaching on that alone. And Yeshua said it. Yeshua quoted, and we read it all the time just by passing. You know, when we come back in John 14 verse 6 says, Yeshua said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but except through me. He was not kidding. He actually says, you know, I am the derech, emet, and chai. You know, I am those 3 things. If you do a study on those 3 words in the Hebrew, you're going to get a beautiful story about our redemption. Those 3 words are extremely meaningful because you cannot walk unless you know the truth. And then how can you have life if you don't know the walk of righteousness? You cannot walk in truth if you don't know the way. You know? So when you understand what truth is, then you're willing to walk in confidence, and you know that at the end you're going to have life. And that's exactly what the Torah is. The Torah is truth because it points out the way we need to live our lifestyle so we can have everlasting life. So he's basically saying, I am the Torah. That's really what he's saying. I am the beginning and the end. And I have been tested, because the letter Mem in the Hebrew means testing. It's the numerical value of 40, which means testing. Moses was in the desert 40 years. The children of Israel was in the desert 40 years. You know, David was a king for 40 years. They've been tested. So the Alpha and the Omega has been tested. He's found to be true. Emet. That's the whole teaching on the word emet in itself. Okay. Psalms 119, verse 43. 119, verse 43. Now, the interesting thing about this is that David is recording this psalm in an acrostic manner as a song. Basically defining his love for the Creator through his word using the Hebrew alphabet. And it's beautiful the way he did it. Because in the Hebrew, each letter represents something. Means something. Yod, hand. Mem means water coming out. You know, Vav, a connector, a hook. Chay, the Ruach, the breath of the Lord. Aleph, the strength of the Lord. You know, Lamed, it's like a little, goad, trying to pull you in. Like a shepherd's staff. You get all these beautiful things. And now in the Hebrew, when you read this in Hebrew, each verse of those 8-verse stanza that you're saying begins with that letter that he's trying to teach you from. So the first 8 verses, each verse starts with Aleph. When you go to Bet, each verse begins with Bet. When you go to Dalet, or Gimel, Dalet, He, the same thing. See, David is using the Hebrew alphabet to show the world the magnificent, beautiful, wonderful works that God can do through his holy language. And it used to be a song. Why 8 verses? 8 verses typifies new beginnings, resurrection. Through the word of God, we have everlasting life. Isn't it exciting? You know, once we understand the secrets, then we can walk in confidence that we're walking in the truth. All right, verse 43. And take not the word of truth utterly out of my mouth, for I have hope in your ordinances. Now, if we know that the Aleph Tav is the word, we can just, for the sake of this study, let's take the word out, the word out, in Hebrew is davar, and let's interject in there, just put in there Aleph Tav, and look at what it says. And take not the Aleph Tav of truth utterly out of my mouth, because he's the beginning and the end. He's the word of the Lord. And I'm not abusing the text, because they all mean the same. Psalm 119, 160, same thing happens, and he says, the entirety of your word is truth, and every one of your righteous judgments endures forever. So if Yeshua says, I am the way, the life, and the truth, or the truth and the life, then it goes hand in hand with this. The entirety of your Aleph Tav is truth, of your words is truth. The rabbis know that the Creator, the ones that created, did the creating, was the word of the Lord. And you see it all through the prophets. And the word of the Lord came to me saying. See, the same one that's speaking in the prophets is the same one that did the creation in the beginning. It's the same one that revealed himself as Messiah. And it's the same one that John is revealing, is saying that he's the Alpha and the Omega. It's the same one. It's a connecting type domino effect. You get one and you can connect them and they all go in every direction. You know? So, when we keep going, we go back to the second, now we have the Messiah and the second coming and his titles. We're going to take a look at the book of Revelation before we go into the verses in the Tanakh and the prophets. The prophets and the Torah. In the book of Revelation, chapter 1, verse 8, we already read that one. It talks about, I am the Aleph and the Tav, says Yahweh Elohim, who is, who was, and who is to come, the Almighty. Then in Revelation chapter 1, verse 17, says the same thing. When I saw... Let me read it. I'm translated from Spanish and it's not working. Okay. Verse 17 says, and when I saw him, I fell to his feet as dead. And he said, he laid his right hand on me, saying to me, do not be afraid. I am the first and the last. Now, see, a lot of people wouldn't really get it. They say, oh, the first and the last. But the key is not the first and the last. The key there is basically, he laid his right hand on me. So, Roa Adonai. It's a huge teaching in the rabbinical circles. The Soroa Adonai. He laid his right hand. How come not his left? He'd always mention the right hand. And when you read the prophets and you go into prophecies about the Messiah, it always says, my right arm. With my powerful arm, I will take you out. It's a prophecy of our Messiah. And now we see the revelation in the last days. Yeshua is revealing himself as John says, he laid his right arm. It's another clue to who he is. Find this interesting? Okay. And it says, in Revelation 22, verse 13. 22, verse 13. For all of you listening, if you think this is a lot of verses, it is. And I do it on purpose. Because the days of basically telling you what I think and over-spiritualizing everything, they're over. We need to come back to the word of the Lord and renew those things that have been lost through eternity for the last 2,000 years. 22, verse 13 says, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. I am the Aleph and the Tav. But look what he says, verse 12. He says, and behold, I am coming quickly, and my reward is with me, to give to everyone according to his works. I am the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. So now we need to go back to some of the verses later on that he's given us a clue. The beginning and the end, the first and the last. Do you know there are verses in Isaiah that talks exactly about that? It defines who he is. Okay? Now, in Revelation 21, verse 6. Revelation 21, verse 6 says, and he said to me, it is done. I am the Aleph and the Tav, beginning and the end. I will give of the fountain of water of life freely to him who thirsts. Now, isn't that interesting that in the great day of the feast, the Simchat Torah and the Feast of Sukkot, Tabernacles, we have this man standing up in the water ceremony and says, whoever's thirsty,